and welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. Wow, is it a bright sunny day out here? And you know, when it's this bright, you would think that your crop would be loving it and doing great, but if you're seeing some yellow areas out in your soybean fields, there is a problem, and it has nothing to do with the sun. We'll talk about iron deficiency chlorosis and how you can fix that on your farm.
We'll also talk about some late season applications in corn. A lot of people are discussing whether or not they should use a fungicide and also throw an insecticide with it. We'll discuss that on the show today.
Well, we've got a weed of the week that can just take over if you don't get your crop in the ground or if you're having some issues with stand out in the field. We'll talk about how to solve our weed of the week problem later in the show. But first, here's today's Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
During our Farm Basics time today, we're going to discuss spray adjuvants.
Well, it's easy when we're talking about the weed of the week to say, well, use Callisto or use Flexstar or whatever product that it may be, but then you have to think about all the other stuff that goes in that spray tank to help those products do their job.
So a lot of people will say, well, if we actually needed to throw something else with it, these chemical companies would put it right in the spray. Well, no, they're not going to, because think about this for just a second. If I'm going to start tank mixing 2 or 3 different things, all of a sudden I might want to change my spray adjuvants because I've got all these things mixed together, and if I put the wrong adjuvant in there, I might really burn my crop. Just the same, if let's say that I've got a hot, dry summer and I've got a thick leaf cuticle, I need a very aggressive spray adjuvant to burn through that leaf cuticle. Well, if all I had was a minor or a mild spray adjuvant in with some of these different products and I mix them together, that wouldn't work either. So there are a number of different reasons why I would want to blend my own spray adjuvants together, not to mention the fact that sometimes with some of these spray adjuvants, if they were to sit together with the herbicide for months at a time in a spray jug, that very well could degrade the herbicide. So for all those reasons, you're not going to find most of the spray adjuvants you need in the herbicides you buy. You need to add them to them.
Well, I think it's important too that you're working with a good agronomist when you're mixing up these recipes that are going to go out in your field, because the spray additives you choose are going to change depending on the time of day that you're going to spray and the weather that you're getting, and also they're going to change depending on which products are going to go into that mix. So if you're spraying on soybeans, for example, and you say, I have a terrible Palmer amaranth problem, I have to do the absolute best I can to control that weed, and I'm going to spray Cobra. That's a different discussion than when you say, I'm going to spray Cobra, I've got 1 or 2 tiny little weeds out there, I'm concerned about leaf burn on my soybeans, I really don't want to burn my leaves. If I don't kill every last weed, it's not the end of the world. Well, there's going to be 2 completely different recommendations for 2 farmers spraying the same exact product. If you're trying to avoid leaf burn, we're going to go with something like non-ionic surfactant. We're going to try and protect that crop, keep the selectivity of the herbicide intact. If we've got a horrible weed problem and you say, I don't really care if I burn the crop a little bit, I absolutely have to kill those weeds, we're going to go with a crop oil or methylated seed oil. That's going to take away some of the selectivity of the herbicide, meaning that that herbicide is now not just going to ding the weeds up, it's also going to ding the crop just a little bit, but the trade-off is you get a lot better weed control.
Okay, so let's come back to the basics here. What we're talking about is with a non-ionic surfactant, that's just a spreader sticker. In other words, it's going to help reduce the surface tension of the water droplet that you spray so it spreads out a little bit better over the leaf. When that happens, a farmer will get better spray coverage. He will also get a little bit better penetration into the leaf just because he's going to have that spray droplet sitting there for a little bit longer period of time. Now, if the farmer really wants leaf penetration, and especially when we have hotter, drier conditions, there gets to be a thick, waxy surface on the leaves of these weeds. It's called the leaf cuticle. Again, it develops when it's hot and dry, and then the farmer will go with something like methylated seed oil or crop oil concentrate, and the purpose of those is not just to spread and stick, it's really to burn through that thick leaf cuticle. Well, if a farmer does this at the wrong time, when he has a thin leaf cuticle, he's going to see a lot more leaf burn on the crop. He might get better weed control like Darren said, but he absolutely is going to see more leaf burn on the crop.
Well, and does that make a difference in terms of yield if you burn the leaves a little bit on the crop? You know, it really depends on the stage of growth that crop is in, what's going on. If it's in the reproductive stages, we want to avoid any kind of stress on the plant that we can. Early in the season on a crop like soybeans, it really isn't going to make much difference in yield more times than not, because that soybean plant is just going to continue growing. And even if, like, you got hail, for example, wiped out all the leaves on a soybean plant early in the season, yet you didn't wipe out all the growing points, the soybean plant really isn't going to lose much yield. At least that's what the university data has been over the years.
Other things that spray adjuvants can do is change the pH of the water and tie up some of the hard water ions like calcium, magnesium, and such, and that's called a sequestering agent. So sometimes you'll find those things that are mixed together with the spray adjuvant. So it's not just about spreading and sticking or leaf penetration, it's about some of these other qualities as well.
Well, there's certainly a lot of things to talk about when we're looking at spray additives that farmers are putting into the tank. There are reasons for each one of those products that they're going to choose, whether it's to get better weed control, to be a little safer on the crop, or to adjust that pH of the water or something like that to make that particular product work better in the field. So there are a lot of choices that farmers will make. One of the considerations that they'll have too is, do they have our weed of the week? And can you identify this week's weed?
What's next in weed control technology? Roundup Ready 2 Extend soybeans will provide tolerance to dicamba and glyphosate and will be built on the Genuity Roundup Ready to Yield trait. See them in action at extendfollowafield.com.
Being a farmer means securing your land and livelihood for the future. Harvest Solutions from Capello USA have the grit to get you there. Our product lines for corn, sunflowers, and forage are designed for efficiency and longevity, preventing harvest loss while minimizing maintenance and downtime. To do everything you can to advance your farmland to the next generation, call us at 855-CAPELLO or visit us at capellousa.com. Capello USA, Italian craftsmanship, American grit.
Wake up, breakfast is served. Your roots crave P. Most of your applied P gets tied up in the soil, a natural phenomenon known as phosphorus fixation. Fix the problem with Avail Phosphorus Fertilizer Enhancer. Avail makes more P available to your roots, here, here, and here. Increasing P availability can lead to increased P uptake in the plant. That's more P, and more P. More phosphorus for your crop can mean more results in your bin. An average of 9.6 bushels per acre of corn. Breakfast is served. Supercharge your P with Avail.
You can put more bushels in your bin without expanding the farm with Yield Track. The new 24-row planter from Titan Machinery features the Case IH Early Riser planting system. Yield Track will take you to the field first with extra flotation come spring. The tracks eliminate pinched rows and reduce compaction. All 22 and 30-inch Yield Tracks come loaded with Case IH technology, including cable drive and AccuRow. Grab more bushels from every acre with Yield Track from Titan Machinery.
I wish I could side dress more than just nitrogen.
You can. While side dressing is efficient for nitrogen applications, you can also use that opportunity to apply PK and the micronutrients your crop needs. AgroLiquid's Calibrate and MicroLink products allow you to nutritionally balance your side dress application efficiently and economically. Let agriculture liquid fertilizer help you make your next crop a bumper crop. For more info, visit agroliquid.com.
A proven herbicide for decades, dicamba can provide burn-down residual control of tough and resistant weeds for up to 14 days. That's another reason why farmers will use dicamba for years to come. Brought to you by Roundup Ready Plus Weed Management Solutions.
Iron deficiency chlorosis in soybeans is called a disease, but Darren, I don't think it's a disease at all.
Well, it's not a disease, and the other thing that it's not is it doesn't mean the plant is lacking iron. So it's really a confusing name when you say iron deficiency chlorosis. The big thing is you've got chlorosis going on. You've got some yellowing on the soybean plants. You'll see it between the veins. So you'll see on the leaves, picture the veins like the fingers on your hand, and those veins are still going to be green, but all the plant tissue in between those veins or in between the fingers is going to be yellow. And that will show up on the upper leaves of the soybean plants as they get growing through the season. They need to have some iron. And when they run short, iron is one of those nutrients in the plant that's going to show up on the upper leaves because it doesn't move around in the plant. Once it's part of a leaf, it stays part of that leaf. So when the new leaves come out and the roots can't extract the right amount of the right form of iron, then all of a sudden those leaves are going to show that deficiency. deficiency.
Here's what it really comes down to. This is a simple problem to solve. Fix your soil pH. If you have a soil pH that's 7 or less, you're not going to see iron deficiency chlorosis, and very rarely will you see it if your soil pH is 7.4 or less. So to reduce your soil pH, what you're going to want to do, in the short term, you can certainly add elemental sulfur. In the long term, usually this issue comes back to drainage. Now, there are a couple other things. When you have poor drainage, you usually have higher nitrate levels, you usually have higher salt levels. Well, those are also key contributing factors to iron deficiency chlorosis. So if you have high pH, high nitrate, and high salt, you're going to have a lot of iron deficiency chlorosis. But again, that's all solved when you fix your drainage issue.
Just back to that form of iron for just a minute. When you look at that high pH, what's really happening, you may have plenty of iron in your soil. And in fact, a lot of plant tissue analysis that'll get pulled by farmers with these areas in the field will show, hey, I've got plenty of iron. Why do I have iron deficiency chlorosis? Well, there are a couple different forms of iron. There's an iron that has a positive 2 charge and an iron that has a positive 3 charge. And when you've got the wrong form of iron that the plant can't use, that's what's really going on. So Brian mentioned adjusting the pH of your soil. That will fix that because now you'll have the right form of the chemical iron in the soil.
All right, so we've talked about the long-term fix. Just get your pH down. And for those people that tell you, oh, you can't fix your soil pH, that's ridiculous. We've done that on our farm. We've fixed our soil pH.
You just can't
can
fix
absolutely
it. You
do
just
it
can't
too.
fix it right overnight
Right,
with a
absolutely.
permanent fix. That's what people are really seeing, that I can't just go out, spray some product on, or spread some kind of fertilizer on, and everything's better from here on out. No, that's not the case, but you have to look at it this way. We didn't develop this problem overnight either. Our pH was good at one point, but something went wrong and it just continued to get worse. And when you have these areas out in fields and you don't deal with them, they're just going to continue to get worse and worse and worse, and they're going to spread and spread and spread in your field. So when you see iron deficiency chlorosis, that should be a big wake-up call that, wow, if my plants are visually showing me a nutrient deficiency, that's a serious problem out of my field. It's been going on for years already and I haven't seen it. Now it's showing itself in the plant. It can't hide it anymore in the field. I've got to get that taken care of. So when you think about the short term in soybeans, there are some quick fix things that you can do for 1 year to try and get by. First of all, you can pick a different variety.
Yeah, but they aren't fixed things. They aren't fixed things. All they are is Band-Aid approaches, and you're not going to maximize yield with these steps.
Well, you're going
so
to
we want you to take the long-term approach plus take the short-term approach, but just understand the short-term approach is sacrificing yield.
All right, well, here's the short-term approach. Variety selection. There are big differences in soybean varieties on tolerance for high pH areas and high salt areas of fields. So when you look at soybeans, a lot of times in seed guides that you'll get from the seed companies, they'll have ratings on how well they can handle these iron deficiency chlorosis areas. For me, I look at variable variety planting, where I take some of those very defensive varieties, plant them just in those pockets in my field, and I can still plant that high yielding racehorse all around it and try to maximize what yield potential I have for this year.
In other words, what we want you to do is get a planter or a drill that will vary variety as you cross the field. We've got that on our farm. That really pays. In addition to that, you can put products like soy green or green bean right in furrow. You can also do some foliar applications of iron, but usually those will just change the color on your plant, and the foliar applications typically don't gain you the yield that the in-furrow applications of iron will.
Yeah, and it's not cheap either. You're probably going to spend $20 to even $30 on these in-furrow treatments in order to really change that spot. And you say, wow, that's very expensive. Sure it is. Maybe it's 2 to 3 bushels of soybeans that you're going to spend, but believe me, if you don't address that problem, you're going to give up 20 bushels or more in those areas. One other thing that can be a problem in these areas where crops won't grow is weeds can take over. Weeds like our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?
Get the most from the genetic potential in your crops, reduce plant stress, and increase yield. BioForge upregulates key genes to keep roots growing and reduce ethylene for improved plant stress tolerance. BioForge mixes well with other products for easy application with every pass through the field. BioForge, progressive growers' choice to improve root growth, reduce crop stress, and increase yield. Make every growing day count with BioForge from Stoller, USA.
Looking to maximize yield? Quick Roots is a microbial seed inoculant that allows the plant root to explore a greater volume of soil, the key to higher yields. Quick Roots continues to generate yield response on corn, soybeans, wheat, and more. Quick Roots is applied to the seed so the live microorganisms go right to work, enhancing seedling vigor, increasing the uptake of certain nutrients including NPK, and expanding root volume. Maximize yield on your farm this season. Call TJ Technologies or your local dealer and get your Quick Roots today.
A farmer's attention to detail is what makes the difference. You take the time for service management because you know how vital it is to your operation. You service your field like everything else because soil sampling makes all the difference and gets the results you want. Download the app Soil Test Pro and start grid sampling today. Keep your farm growing strong. The more you test, the more you know.
Being a farmer means securing your land and livelihood for the future. Harvest Solutions from Capello USA have the grit to get you there. Our product lines for corn, sunflowers, and forage are designed for efficiency and longevity, preventing harvest loss while minimizing maintenance and downtime. To do everything you can to advance your farmland to the next generation, call us at 855-CAPELLO or visit us at capellousa.com. Capello USA, Italian craftsmanship, American grit.
If you watch Ag PhD TV, you'll love the new Ag PhD radio show each weekday on Rural Radio Sirius XM Channel 80. This is Darren Hefty. On the new Ag PhD radio program, we'll take live callers and provide the agronomic information and brotherly banter you've come to expect from Ag PhD. We'll feature a Back 40 segment where we talk to farmers and agronomists around the country to share what's going on with crop production. And it wouldn't be Ag PhD without addressing a pest of the day. Tune in to the Ag PhD radio show each weekday at 2 p.m. Central on Rural Radio Sirius XM Channel 80.
When it comes to fungicide and insecticide treatments in corn, there are a couple different timings that many farmers around the country are using.
Well, when we look at that V4 to V7 window, that's a real common one because there's herbicide applications going on at that same time. You're already heading across the field. Hey, why not consider it? And there have been some nice gains, especially in that V6 and V7 window. There have been some gains in V4 and V5 as well. But with fungicides, the important thing to remember is they're only going to protect the leaf foliage that's out. And by the time you're talking V6, V7, you've got 9, maybe 10 leaves that are exposed. You've got the ear leaf there. You can actually protect that leaf that's going to be by your ear, that's going to be feeding that ear. So that's where I think we're getting good gains. Now we've got the other end of the extreme here. We've got tasseling time applications going on. Once you've got all the tassels out in a field, this is very important. You have to have all the tassels out. And you start to do some silking too. So you're just really sure that you're past that pollination or right at that pollination time or beyond. Now you can go ahead and do some fungicide at that time as well because, as I mentioned, you can only protect the leaves that are out with fungicide. When we're talking about these fungicide applications at this timing, late in the season, you just kind of have to make that guess. Hey, do I have a good crop out here? Is it going to meet or exceed my yield expectations? And do I think that I'm going to have some issues out there with disease, or is plant health worth it for me? That may be another thing too. If you've got some bugs out there, you may say, I really need to spray for bugs. I'm going to put the fungicide in too. That way I can get some plant health benefits and really push this crop that has great potential.
Well, when you have bugs, for one thing, it opens the plant up for more disease issues. So typically, if you have to spray an insecticide, a fungicide is going to pay a lot better. In our operation in a dry area of the country, it just hasn't worked. So again, we're not trying to discourage you from using a late season fungicide and insecticide application, but we just want you to make sure you know your area, and if nothing else, at least run some trials. That's how we've learned what we have on our farm. Split some fields, treat some different hybrids, do some different things in your operation and just see, hey, is this paying for me or not?
Hey, one other thing too is make sure you identify what disease is out there. If you do have a problem, check that it's not Gauss's wilt. If it's Gauss's wilt, that's a bacterial problem. Yep. You can't solve that with a fungicide. Well, unfortunately, fungicide and insecticide can't solve all our problems like controlling our weed of the week. We'll show you what will control this tough weed coming up next.
Your time is valuable. That's why you need a Hagie STS application system. Hagie STS products are designed for precision and efficiency, allowing you to make applications all season long with just one machine. Contact your Hagie rep today.
Our weed of the week is a summer annual weed. It's carpetweed.
Yeah, now this one isn't real difficult to control. It does stay pretty low to the ground, so where I see it a lot of times is actually in lawns, sometimes in pastures. The main thing is we just want to try to have a healthy pasture, a healthy lawn, and mow that lawn up high. Don't overgraze your pasture, things like that. And then the grass is typically going to choke out this weed.
Well, I would say fertilize, Brandon. And I talk to guys all the time, especially farmers. And really, as farmers, guys. We shouldn't under-fertilize our lawn. But I hear guys say, you know, I'm so busy in the summer, I don't want to fertilize the lawn, so I have to mow more.
Right.
But if you don't have a healthy lawn, it's just like your crop. If your crop is sick and not getting the nutrition it needs, weeds are going to take over, disease is going to take over, and that's going to happen in your lawn too. The other thing with carpetweed is it spreads out low to the ground. It can actually root down at those nodes again, and that can make it even stronger and make it compete even more against your lawn, pulling more water away from your grasses, those kind of things. You know, it's a pretty easy to identify weed. It's got those little white flowers right where the leaves will hook up to the stem. So if you've seen carpetweed once, that's probably all you ever need to see it. You know, oh yeah, that's carpetweed, no problem. Now, how do I get it under control?
Well, in lawns, it's really pretty easy. Use 2,4-D. But here's the problem that I see. A lot of times carpetweed doesn't come up till a little bit later in the year. Darren said it's a summer annual weed, but we want you to spray 2,4-D early in the spring and late in the fall. So a lot of people will go out early in the spring and they say, well, I don't know, my lawn looks pretty good. I'm just going to skip the 2,4-D application this year. And then all of a sudden the weeds come, and then they call up in June and say, well, I'd like to spray 2,4-D now. And I say, okay, well, do you have flowers around your place? Are there leaves on your trees that you want to stay there? 2,4-D, it can move quite a bit, especially in the heat of the year. So we really want to see that sprayed early in the season and late in the year. If you do that, even when the weeds aren't there, you're going to find you're going to have a lot fewer carpet weeds to deal with later.
You know, the other thing I think about is out in wheat, Brian, and if we can get that early stand established in wheat, we don't normally have big issues with carpetweed. But if for some reason we don't, if we're late planted or if we got some spots out there where our stand wasn't great, we can see some carpetweed there. I really like Sharpen in the burn down, and this is one of those areas where I don't think there's enough pre-emerge herbicide getting used in front of wheat, and we're missing out on some great tools. If you've got some broadleaf weed problems, I know Roundup resistant kochia in the north is a big issue. Guys just love putting Sharpen out. You can use a pretty strong rate out in front of wheat. It does a great job. It holds those broadleaves down for quite a while into the season. So you've got a lot of time to get that crop up and established. If you had some carpetweed, Sharpen would be a great burn down. And then in crop in wheat, I really like Wide Match with Addition Broad Spec mixed in there with it. Using one of those Addition products, we get a lot of extra kick on weeds like carpetweed. I think that'd be your best choice.
Okay, pre-emergent corn, I agree with Darren. Sharpen's really good. Balance Flex isn't that bad either.
Well, Triple Flex and Sure Start do a really nice job as well on carpetweed. And then post-emerge, you know, our favorite choice is Status, but unfortunately it's been sold out for a long time this year, and it's getting pretty late in the year. Even in the northern part of the country where guys are still spraying, many of them are switching over to the HPPDs like Callisto, Lotus Impact, Armazon. Adding a half pound of atrazine in there, they can do a nice job on carpetweed.
All right, soybeans, what do you think?
Well, soybeans, I like the pre-emerge products that contain Authority and Valor. They're very good. The yellows like Treflan, Sonland, and Prowl do a nice job too. So our 3 pre-approach where we're using a yellow plus an Authority or Valor plus a Metribuzin just does an unbelievable job on carpetweed.
Yeah, but what are you going to do post?
Well, if anything made it through that, you could clean it up with Cobra or Flexstar.
Well, once again, our weed of the week is carpetweed. Stick around, we've got Iron Talk coming up next.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
What are farmers doing to feed the planet? They're using Quadtrek technology, soil management, and planting systems from Case IH to foster a better growing environment that maximizes yield potential. Visit caseih.com to be ready.
Having the right equipment is critical to achieve the best performance from your fungicide and insecticide applications. In today's Iron Talk, I'll show you how a small change can make a big difference for you. When it comes to insecticides, the main ones being used post-emerge are the pyrethroids like Warrior, Asana, Silencer, and Mustang Max, as well as the organophosphates like Lorsban. Getting good coverage helps by increasing the speed in which the insects come in contact with the insecticide. Since bugs can be almost anywhere on the plant, it makes sense to use a little more water, spray pressure, and to shoot for a smaller droplet size. With fungicides, you have to understand how they work in order to set your sprayer up to optimize performance. There are 2 transport systems in plants called the xylem and the phloem. The xylem can only move things upward in the plant. The phloem moves things like nutrients and water both up and down in the plant. Fungicides, once they're inside the plant, only move in the xylem. That means they only move up. Now, one other important consideration is that fungicides can only protect the leaves and plant parts that are out at time of application. With this in mind, there are some little changes that you need to make on your sprayer compared to if you're spraying Roundup alone. First of all, with fungicides especially, but also with insecticides, you should use more spray volume with ground rigs performing mid-season applications. Your crop is up, it has some size to it. Now you need volume to cover these plants. Secondly, you need the correct spray tips to make small droplets to get the best coverage. Flat fans work the best. Finally, your spray pressure should be fairly high to get penetration down through the canopy and to coat the plants. Spraying an insecticide and certainly a fungicide is a lot different than spraying straight Roundup. We aren't nearly as worried about drift, and we need to have excellent coverage to get the job done. Use flat fan tips with more water volume per acre and a higher spray pressure to protect your crop. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
The Case IH Spring Sales Event is on now, making it a great time to get the equipment you need for this season. With 0% financing for 60 months on all Farmall and Maxim Series tractors, as well as our complete line of hay tools, you can turn everyday chores into everyday savings. But hurry, the Spring Sales Event ends June 30th, 2014. For more information, ask your local Case IH dealer or go to caseih.com/special offers.
Get the most from the genetic potential in your crops, reduce plant stress, and increase yield. BioForge upregulates key genes to keep roots growing and reduce ethylene for improved plant stress tolerance. BioForge mixes well with other products for easy application with every pass through the field. BioForge, progressive growers' choice to improve root growth, reduce crop stress, and increase yield. Make every growing day count with BioForge from Stoller, USA.
Being a farmer means securing your land and livelihood for the future. Harvest Solutions from Capello, USA have the grit to get you there. Our product lines for corn, sunflowers, and forage are designed for efficiency and longevity, preventing harvest loss while minimizing maintenance and downtime. To do everything you can to advance your farmland to the next generation, call us at 855-CAPELLO or visit us at capellousa.com. Capello USA, Italian craftsmanship, American grit.
Can I grow my crop without the expense of fertilizer additives?
You can. Conditions forcing you to make some tough choices? Choose agricultural liquid fertilizers and you won't need stabilizers or nutrient managers, eliminating expense and hassle. Millions of acres and years of replicated research have proven that with ProGerminator, SureK, High Energy and MicroLink, you can grow a great crop without costly additives. To learn more and find a dealer near you, visit agroliquid.com.
If you watch Ag PhD TV, you'll love the new Ag PhD radio show each weekday on Rural Radio Sirius XM Channel 80. This is Darren Hefty. On the new Ag PhD radio program, we'll take live callers and provide the agronomic information and brotherly banter you've come to expect from Ag PhD. We'll feature a Back 40 segment where we talk to farmers and agronomists around the country to share what's going on with crop production. And it wouldn't be Ag PhD without addressing a pest of the day. Tune in to the Ag PhD radio show each weekday at 2 p.m. Central on Rural Radio Sirius XM Channel 80.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
The all-new S-Cube commercial tender is the only tender on the market with poly tanks, giving you the capability to haul seed, fertilizer, water, or liquid fertilizer. Each cube can hold 300 units of seed, 2,000 gallons of liquid, or 300 cubic feet of fertilizer. Options include full-functioning wireless remote, stainless steel conveyors, and self-contained hydraulics. Get yours today at Norwood Sales.
That's all the time we have for today's show, but for more agronomic information, we invite you to tune in to Sirius XM Channel 80. That's the Rural Radio channel every weekday at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern for Ag PhD Radio.
And don't forget to tune in for the next Ag PhD TV, where we'll have a Weed of the Week, Farm Basics Iron Talk, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
75 to 95% of soil-applied phosphorus may be tied up and made unavailable to plants. Farmers use organic proteins and other fertilizer innovations to ensure their crops are fed properly. For more information, visit the Responsible Nutrient Management Foundation at rnmf.org.